So as soon as it hits 4, there we go. That's right, sir. No, it's here. I'll just wait for everyone to come in. Yeah. Yeah, I'll wait till the crowd come in, so there's not the disturbance to the other door. No, I thought, as I said, I think it comes in. That's very... Ready to go? Right, mate? Okay, I'd just like to welcome everyone here this afternoon for the special council meeting, and I'll declare the meeting open at 5:01. Members of the public are advised that recommendations to council contained within this agenda can be subject to change. Applicants and other interested parties should refrain from taking any action until written advice is received confirming council's decision with respect to any particular issue. Any statement or insinuation of approval regarding any planning or development application made during a special council meeting is not to be taken as notice of approval. Anyone who has an application lodged with the Shire must obtain and should only rely on written confirmation of the outcome of the application and any conditions attached to the decision made by council. Council members and the community are reminded that should an exception resolution be passed, this has the effect of making the decision to accept the officer's recommendation stated in the agenda as the council's decision without change. An audio and visual record will be made by means of live streaming of these proceedings and uploaded to the Shire's YouTube page for viewing. Acknowledgement of country. The Shire of Harvey acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. And we pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and to their cultures and to elders both past, present and emerging. Procedural motion. Councillor Gillett put forth the following: that Council suspend Standing Orders Part 8, Clause 8.5, members to indicate their intention to speak and to rise when speaking, to allow members to remain seated when speaking to improve the quality of the audio recording for this meeting. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lovett. Is there any discussion, councillors? I'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? The motion is carried. Item 2, record of apologies and leave of absence. We have apologies from Councillor Jackson, apologies from CEO Ms Annie Reardon, and just note that Ms Kirsty Davis is acting CEO at present. Leave of absence is nil. Item 3, declarations of members and officers' personal interest. Any declarations at all? Nil. Item 4, response to previous questions taken on notice is nil. Item 5, public question time. Any questions from the public?
Thanks, Mr. President. No, that's fine. Just a question from the Beating Up Town Association Incorporated. Councillors, the impact of this proposal upon the water resources is key. The protection of the iconic Leschenol estuary from the impacts of this intensive land use emitting nutrients such as phosphorus and nitrogen must be addressed. So my question is, can Council advise if the Minister for Water has exercised his powers under the Waterways Conservation Act 1976 to ensure that proponents have addressed the matter of nutrient-rich wastewater from sewage disposal systems finding their way to the estuary through local surface water and groundwater systems? Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Mr. Hall.
As I don't have a microphone, I'll stand, so it's fine. Thank you. Look, it's through the chair. Thanks, Mr. Moore. Look, that particular question is being dealt with by the Department of Water, and they have requested additional information to confirm that the outcome that you're requesting, no impact on that additional conservation category wetland will occur, but there still is insufficient information in that regard to definitively determine that that's the case.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, moving to item 6. You could have kept standing, Craig, if you like. Petitions, deputations, presentations and submissions. We have Craig Morn and Glenda Teague from the Bidding Up Town Association Incorporated to make a deputation. So, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councillors, okay, so my name is Craig Moore, and between myself and Glenda Teague, we will provide a joint presentation on behalf of Bidding Up Town Association Incorporated. The BTA, formed in response to Albemarle's development application lodged on the 4th of July 2022, and subsequently heard at the Joint Development Assessment Panel, JDAP, on the 15th of August. So we speak this afternoon in support of the recommending officer's report to refuse the development application. So who are we? So we are a community-based group that represent a typical cross-section of the 1,200 odd Bidding Up residents. We include singles, young married couples making their way in life, families with school-aged kids, couples who have brought up their children in Bidding Up through to adults, and retirees. I think it's important to put to bed any notion that our objection is due to NIMBYism. The sole reason for the BTA being is to argue against its proposed development application, namely this site is simply the wrong one. We live in a community that has land zoned residential to the south of Valentine Road, and we have no interest, on first principles, to argue against the developer seeking to develop land for that purpose of increasing housing stock. It is important to restate here that the BTA is not against the expansion that is taking place at the Kemerton lithium plant located in the Kemerton Strategic Industrial Area, known as the KSIA. We consider this presents great opportunities for the Harvey Shire and the South-West. However, we consider a TWA of the size and scale is not necessary and is contrary to first principles of why the KSIA was established, namely provide employment to local people and grow satellite towns on residential zoned land in a planned and orderly manner. Based on the applicant's responses to department agency submissions, it raises concerns that this proposed 500 worker temporary workforce accommodation facility has a very real potential to expand. Expand to what? 1,000 capacity? Is there a limit? The point is noted in the development application on page 4, where it states the design can be retained, incrementally added, or reduced in scale as part of a future application or use. We are concerned this facility has capacity to, in effect, double the population of Bingo Beach in a short space of time. Is there any evidence in the Shire where a town or village has increased its population like this? How is a town and its residents supposed to function without proportionate planned facilities and services? Has workforce accommodation of this size and scale been contemplated and planned for in the Harvey Shire Strategic Plan? We are concerned why a global corporation would seriously consider a proposal of this nature, given all the sites available in the vicinity of Kemerton. This one is in the heart of the food growing region. It is on farmland, and this land adjoins horticultural land to the east and wetlands to the west that drains into the National District. We are solutions-based, and it would be easy for the BPA to just oppose. The question to be answered, whilst not a planning requirement or consideration for this proposal, for our own credibility is, do we have alternatives? The answer to that is yes, and this will be discussed later. We are concerned whether the applicant themselves know whether this proposal is temporary or permanent, short-term or long-term, and therefore makes it difficult to actually know what it is we are commenting on. The applicant's own documents entitled Temporary Workers Accommodation. The lease is for 15 years. The latest community consultation, delivered on the 10th of October, restates the village is temporary. Yet in response to wastewater management solutions, the applicant advises our goal is long-term. The takeaway, is this a 500 worker camp, 1,000 worker camp? Is it for 5 years, being the construction phase of trains K3 to K5? Or 15 years? Is it going to be repurposed, or left as is, or removed? We do not propose to go through our 35-page submission in detail as to all the reasons why this application should be denied. However, we wish to highlight key reasons. I will now refer to Linda T to provide further insights about our community engagement and matters not covered in the development application.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting us tonight. I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Glenda T. I'm a Binging Up resident, and I am on the association, the Binging Up Town Association. So that's where I sit at the moment. So I will go through what I have to deliver tonight. So I'll start now. We have held 3 community meetings and a rally. All have been open to the public. To give you an indication of the level of the face-to-face engagement, we have had 80, 130 and 90 adults attend respective community meetings. To show that not everyone enjoys a meeting, we also see the approximately of 90% of individual public submissions objected to the proposal, and 210 adults attended the Sunday rally. For a population who enjoy the peace and quiet, this demonstrates without doubt an extraordinary level of genuine concern about this proposal. In short, we have said no, and we need to be heard. I now draw your attention to what has not been included in the development application, matters relating to traffic. Firstly, the traffic impact assessment does not discuss the construction of the facility itself. This is a $73 million investment requiring significant site works and construction of 128 villas. In relation to this point, Binningup has only one road in and one out of the town, and nowhere in this report is there a traffic and traffic management considered. This proposal should either be denied on this point alone or at the very last deferred. Secondly, the TIA is only relevant to Taranto Road and Forest Highway intersection. What it fails to mention is that business traffic such as bus movements still need to negotiate the Binningup Road, Forest Highway intersection. Whether this be turning left onto Wesley Road or to Kemperton, or turning right onto Forest Highway from Kemperton, or continue along the highway travelling through to the intersection and turn on or off at Marriott Road. Third, the applicant's own statement on page 16 advises it is anticipated that a proportion of the village patrons may choose to travel outside of the village for recreation, leisure purposes, to various local attraction nodes after shift has finished. Despite assurances from the applicant, this provides clear evidence. There is going to be casual use by workers after shift. The effect of this has not been factored into this impact on the Binningup Forest Highway, Binningup Road, or the local town road network. Fourth, based on the applicant's own statements in the development application at information sessions on the 15th and 16th of May, and again on the 19th of September, with the applicant executives, there is a strong likelihood that the facility will increase in capacity in a short space of time for which no TIA has been modelled. We say, based on these circumstances, the TIA should be remodelled to reflect these eventualities. Whilst main roads have no objection to the traffic strategy for Taranto Road, we note that main roads in their referral submission state that the applicant's strategy be reviewed at the discretion of main roads if any material changes occur. In the opinion of main roads to be referred, transportation parameters or staffing and general operation measures for the development. The applicant, in our opinion, does not understand the environment in which they seek to locate and demonstrate a clear lack of awareness, not knowing that Binningup Road, Forest Highway is the second highest priority intersection in need of attention in the southwest. For the applicant to ring-fence the traffic assessment to Taranto Road is naive and may set a danger to passerby users, residents and workers. We refer to the crash statistics obtained from main roads on 8th of September 2022. For a 2-year period ending 31 December 21 between Rig Road, Buffalo Road and along Forest Highway. This is significant as this section of road will be used by the applicant and their workers on a daily basis. In this period there have been 12 crashes. 58% of these have been major incidents in daylight where speed and rear ending are common factors. There is no evidence of social impact study undertaken by the applicant and included as part of the development application. We make the following comments in relation to our community. Evidence indicates that workers' camps, such as the proposed by Albemarle for Lot 101 at Binningup, can have serious adverse social impacts. They have also been identified as offering an advantages socially or economically for the areas where they are located. This study shows that camps built in or near established towns can be highly contentious, including issues with masculinities and violence. Workers' camps result in workers have little attachment to communities, likely increase in criminal and antisocial behaviour. However, services such as police and medical facilities do not increase along with the increases in population at Camp Spring. Negative impacts of mining-related developments on workers, families and local communities Camps have resulted in local communities incurring economic and social costs, and the study concludes that. Such developments need to consider the health impacts on the nearby facilities, including caravan parks, childcare, shops, playgrounds and public buildings. Binningup Beach has very few facilities to support an increase in the population proposed by the applicant. We have one general store with limited facilities. The Binningup Country Club is licensed and provides meals for members only. This is adjacent to the local bowling club. There are no medical facilities, ambulance, doctors, nursing posts, chemist, pathology, hospital. The closest medical and hospital facilities are Harvey, 26.5 kilometres, or Bunbury, which is 29 kilometres. The applicant is suggesting that their TWA facilities may be available for community use. We query why a parent of children or a single person would seek to use facilities occupied by construction workers, whether male or female, who have been away from their families for up to 2 weeks. With regards to future use of camp, the community queries whether the applicant is positioned to offer and any potential future use. It is not their land. In the Shire of Harvey Strategic Community Plan, protection and care of the coastline is listed as a top aspiration for the Shire and its residents. This was also a primary concern for residents at the community consultation session. To our knowledge, social impact and health research related to the TWA site at Binningup has not been carried out by the applicant. In response to commentary listed in today's agenda about antisocial behaviour and increased crime, it states, the community has concerns that the proposal will result in an increase in crime and various forms of antisocial behaviour, perhaps highlighted by recent inquiries into FIFO workers' camp, and refers to Australian planning case law. The report goes on to say, in the absence of the provision of the social impact assessment, the nature and extent of these potential impacts cannot be quantified nor determined. Should the proposal be approved, an SIA and subsequent management plan is considered critical. Here is the rub. If the application is approved and the construction commences, there is no turning back. There is no government department agency we are aware of that undertakes such an independent assessment. So, who is the authority to conduct the SIA and when will this occur in relation to the proposal? This is a further example of the town of Binningup and the residents being collateral damage to the applicant's goal of establishing this facility. In our view, the studies undertaken provide the necessary support to refuse the proposed 500-person TWA in the Binningup community. Binningup is a small community of approximately 1,200 people. It is a wonderful coastline and access. It is inviting to visitors and families who choose to live here, so they can bring their children up in a safe and cohesive community. We believe this will adversely impact by the proposed TWA and more suitable sites need to be sought. I now wish to touch on the fact that the community should be able to have confidence in proper planning and decision making. All ratepayers, including those who own land, zoned residential, rural or general farming, need to have confidence in planning and associated governments so that an observed outcome will not result due to the unintended consequence. The alternative should be that confidence in proper planning and zoning rules and regulations will not be allowed to be undermined by the opportunist behaviour. From a farmer's perspective, how are they supposed to invest and grow their business when something like this development application literally lands on their doorstep? Farming is a long-term industry. It requires investment and lifetime of trial and error, whilst also applying modern science to improve the production outcomes, effectiveness and efficiency. Farming is also generational. This is important. The future of growing food is influenced by governments and their agencies making good planning decisions. Decisions that recognise farming is typically handed down from generation to generation through succession of planning. Farmers rely on planning agency decision makers not to undermine their investment decisions so they can continue to grow the food we all eat with confidence. All ratepayers of residential land in Binningup Beach should be able to make personal lifestyle choices, to settle and raise a family, to make fair and reasonable residential investment decisions with a high degree of confidence from a planning perspective. We acknowledge resident owners make investments and all come with a level of risk. In assessing that risk, a reasonable person undertakes their own due diligence. For example, if a person acquired land on the edge of an undeveloped land zone residential, they know at some time in the future their open space enjoyment may well cease when the planned development is carried out. Binningup Beach residents are aware of this as there is an undeveloped land zone residential to south of Valentine Road. The resident investor also knows that such a development will only proceed based on the developer adhering to strict residential planning laws. They know that this development will not give pause for the population to explode without proper planning and with proportionate services and facilities. Alternatively, if a resident acquired land adjacent to general farming land, then they are doing so knowing that the land is to be used for that purpose and accepting the positive and negative aspects of such a decision. Either way, it is a completely different proposition for any ratepayer resident in Binningup Beach to be subject to any proposal that is unexpected, unforeseen and unreasonable. This is not restricted to adverse investment impacts. It goes to complete undermining of community and what community stands for. We recognise when something is inherently wrong. This proposal produces an absurd outcome changing the fabric of the community that does not have infrastructure, nor was it designed to contemplate such as an unplanned and unstructured proposal. I'll now hand you back to Craig.
Okay, so another key reason this proposal should be denied. We disagree that workforce accommodation is a residential building, as defined. This goes to the heart of the matter. We say if you have residential buildings, then put them on residential zone land with the same residential conditions, just like any other developer. Another reason. In 2010, the Environmental Protection Authority released Report 1359, and that's called the Strategic Environmental Advice on the Dawson to Binningup area. This report recommended that residential development in the sensitive environmental strip is to only take place on land already zoned residential due to state, federal and world environmental significance. Next, it is within the priority agriculture buffer zone and the Greater Bunbury Regional Scheme. It adjoins horticultural owners who are concerned about conflicting land use. There are issues with on-site effluent disposal and its impact on agriculture and the environment, including the risk of contamination of groundwater disposal, contamination of groundwater, essential for horticulture and general farming. This development proposal should be nothing less than reticulated sewage. It's not just the Binningup Town Association that have recognised and raised these concerns that we've just outlined for you. Our state government department agencies, for whom we rely on for guidance and advice, say 1. Department of Biodiversity Conservation Attractions. Their advice is that Lot 101 is within the strategic environmental area and the lot is subject to the recommendations as per EPA Report 1359. 2. DPIR, the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development, have objected to this development proposal. They say the Greater Bunbury Regional Scheme Priority Agricultural Land Policy identifies priority agricultural land that needs to be protected by preventing development that may adversely affect their use for agricultural production, now and into the future. These areas are considered by state to be of significance to WA by virtue of any or all of its social, economic, cultural and environmental values. This proposal is within the buffer policy buffer, which is in place to minimise land use conflicts. Further, if this is approved, DPIRD considers the development would result in the establishment of a sensitive land use in close proximity to the priority agricultural land, which could prejudice current or potential agricultural activities and production. DPIRD also query, is this temporary or permanent facility? That's what the BPA will query. They say the application is ambiguous and whether the accommodation facility is temporary or permanent. It references both temporary workers accommodation and then to the possible unknown future use at the end of the operation as a workers accommodation. In response to DPIRD referral submission, the applicant states it be given little weight. In relation to deep sewer, the applicant in response states the deep sewer is not viable based on additional cost of up to $10 million. The cost of the upgrade exceeds the applicant's on-site treatment system by a factor of 5, so that budget 2. On this basis, a reticulated sewerage strategy, the applicant is saying is not financially feasible. The BTA says our government agencies are saying the proposal needs to be connected to deep sewer. We say this is what is expected, and so the cost of doing this is not a community problem, or a neighbour problem, or a burden on the community, or neighbour should bear by allowing anything less than what is recommended. We bring to Council's attention the applicant has made a number of subsequent changes to the development application, lodged on 12th of July this year, the latest to our knowledge being the 28th of September this year. With respect, the BTA has limited resources and we have worked hard to mine through 600 pages of development application, for which we are sure the applicant stood by at the date of lodging. Yet we have further changes. We say enough is enough. This is effectively bleeding us for time and money, for which I am sure is unintended. Nevertheless, the applicant has had since October 2021 to get this right. We say, can consideration be given tonight to reflect any recommendation voted on is determined on information lodged as at the 12th of July 2022, or if needed, 28th September 2022. I will just come back to the suitable alternate sites. We met executives of the applicant on the 19th of September. We were provided the applicant's risk matrix for selecting sites. Upon assessment of the matrix, we later provided 2 alternate sites that would have greater appeal, in our opinion, than Lot 101. We have been advised since that one of the sites, being zoned general farming land, is not suitable, as the Shire did not support this. That's what's coming back to us, that general farming land, that site is not suitable, which is pretty much the site that we're talking about. Now, in relation to the site zone of residential, the advice was not that this site is unsuitable. Is there a real possibility this alternate site may be suitable? It is clear to the BTA and to the broader community there is a major community concern having this workforce accommodation facility in Bingham. We come back to our earlier point. We are not against the expansion taking place at Kempton. but we are against this proposed site for the reasons set out above. In the interest of the applicant's social licence, goodwill, and standing in the wider community over the long term, the BPA put forward, why is it not possible for the Shire and the applicant to work cooperatively and revisit one of these alternative sites as the way to resolve this matter in the interest of everyone? For all the reasons set out above, we are of the view this development application be refused. Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Glenda. Councillors have any questions at all? Okay. Thank you. Okay, item 7, purpose of the meeting. The purpose of the meeting is to consider the JDAP development application for the Albemarle residential building workers accommodation. Mr Hall, do you wish to give a brief overview? Or have you said enough?
I've always I usually have already said enough. Look, firstly, I just would like to thank both Linda and Craig for that submission and respectfully request that that actually be presented to the JDAP meeting at the opportunity. I don't know if this is on, is it?
No.
It's not. It should be. Is that better? No? I don't know. It was. I think the batteries died. Anyway, no? Yes. Craig, that submission was bang on and it was very accurate, it was very precise with regard to where we're at in the process, and it's also one that really needs to be presented to the decision maker of JDAP. So now sounds like the time. So thanks. So just reaffirming that, please make that presentation as JDAP. Look, I don't really want to go through everything that's in the report, and also don't want to go back much further than the community meeting that we have held recently, but just bringing you up to speed with a couple of things that have happened. I think it's a very accurate description to say that we are still receiving some additional information as we go forward. I'm sorry I couldn't answer your question earlier in terms of are we able to provide due or confirmation that the legislation that due administers won't result in off-site environmental impact. We just don't know. That level of assessment hasn't been undertaken as yet. And that agency has actually requested that should an approval be given, whereby on-site disposal is actually the ultimate outcome, is that all that information is presented prior to the development application actually being granted. So it's not as a condition, so it's not the horses bolted. They want to be confident that the site can actually accommodate it. So I agree with you on that one wholeheartedly, that there is still a need for further information. We have obviously prepared quite a comprehensive reasoning for refusal and haven't taken into further reasons for refusal should others in the room wish to add to it. We've also taken the position that in the absence, as Linda said, in the absence of certain pieces of information, whether the traffic impact assessment, environmental reviews, or the social effects data, that should it be approved, we do need a lot more information. It's really disappointing that we're not standing here in front of you today with all that information. So the recommendation is refusal, and an alternative to that is that should JDAP contemplate granting approval, they do actually need to request deferral and allow some further time to obtain and assess that information. We did, in community meetings, it's public record, we have actually sought and received further legal advice in regard to a number of things. Firstly, admissibility, in terms of condition not listed, workforce accommodation, and whether or not JDAP has the capacity to actually ignore the decision the council made previously in July to actually say that no, we don't think this is an appropriate site, and therefore JDAP can't determine. Surprisingly, we have received advice that says JDAP is the sole determining authority for anything that they receive. There's a lot of other questions that advice brings up, but unfortunately for the Shire, for the community at this stage as well. Any decision the council makes, the JAD has the ability to literally ignore and make their own decision. Not as a planning framework, but it's a framework that we operate out. The other thing is it a residential building? Yes or no? Legal advice has come back that says there is the ability for JAD to consider it as a residential building. So for us to argue that it's not, or it is, I think is probably going to be a moot point. However, that advice isn't unqualified. It also says that we need to take into account the scale and impact that that particular residential building has, and whether or not 128 individual residential buildings is actually consistent with what they first thought, or whether or not allowing the community members to access certain facilities on site, whether it be the swimming pool, healthcare provisions. If that is the case, it doesn't meet the definition of residential buildings. So there could not be any immediate interaction with this facility because it would cease to be operating as a residential building. So all of that said, the problem that we're facing is that one, we're not decision makers. Two, we have advice to say JAD can do what they've done. And three, JAD needs to take into account scale of impact, on-site, off-site, and really those submissions that you put forward this afternoon need to be given to them as well, because we've done it many, many times, and we're in the situation that we're in at the moment, and I think I've probably said enough at this stage, but we are on the same page at this stage in terms of the impact, both on-site, off-site, and to the community, and so I just implore you to continue your current line of discussion.
Okay. Councillors, is there any questions at all? Okay, we have a officer's recommendation on page 22. Is there a mover? Councillor Campbell, is there a seconder? The motion, Councillor Birdwell. Councillor Campbell. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it's to the officer's recommendation 1 and 2 in paragraph 2. And I would like to add in there another reason for not approving. And would you like me to read that out?
Yes, thanks, Councillor Campbell.
An approval of the proposed development would result in the establishment of a sensitive land use on land within, adjacent to, or in close proximity to the priority agricultural land areas, and would prejudice current or potential agricultural activities and production.
Okay, is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Bromwell. Councillor Campbell. To the amendment.
I've got a seconder.
Councillor Bromwell.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bromwell. And while I've got the floor, can I just acknowledge staff for their comprehensive report for council, and also acknowledge the efforts of the community bidding up, the committee of bidding up, and in particular the BTA for their resolve in dealing with this application. Councillors, the officer's report and DPERC has identified that this proposed development, if approved, will introduce a sensitive land use of a considerable scale within close proximity to existing agricultural activities. There is potential for both activities to be affected, and this may not be able to be addressed by planning conditions. So therefore I ask that this be added into as a reason for not approving the DA.
Councillor Bromwell, seconder. Do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Thank you, Mr.
You can remain seated, Councillor.
I support the due to the fact that it might have the potential to significantly affect agricultural management in the state of Western Australia.
Okay. Is there a speaker against the amendment? Councillor Burgoyne, you have a question?
This word? Yeah. If there was an alternative site proposed, would this amendment make that null and void, or was replication of the amendment basically?
No, probably not. No. Look, I don't see that the additional reason for refusal would have any significant bearing on any sort of site selection process going forward. It would be, we would need to be mindful of that going forward, regardless of the site. But in the absence of knowing which other site it is, I can't see why this would actually have any prejudicial outcome going forward for further discussions.
Okay, there's no... Councillor Burgoyne. Oh, you want your microphone back? Oh. Okay, there's no speakers against. Is there like to be any other discussion or any other questions, councillors? We're happy to put the amendment. I'll put the amendment. Is anyone against the amendment? The amendment's carried 11-1. Okay, that now comes the substantive. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Thank you very much, councillors, for that, because I think that was a very important addition to the reasons for referral. So I'm now speaking to the officer's recommendation in full, and I'm going to go through what I've said before, because I think it's important that the proponent's initial presentation to council indicated that this was their preferred site, and I feel that this has been presented to council as a fait accompli. Council, is this the best use of land? And to me it appears to be a quick and easy solution. I understand the issues surrounding the availability of housing in the rental market, but I believe that we have missed a great opportunity to have the proponent establish this accommodation in another more suitable location within the Shire, where it can support local businesses and industry and utilise already established facilities. And I have a number of concerns surrounding the conservation category wetland. I have concerns about the Chewett woodland and the impact the building may have on the establishment. I've got concerns surrounding the reticulated sewerage. I've got concerns about potential floodplains and acid sulphate soils. And I believe Bigging does not have the infrastructure or the service capacity to support this development. So I support the officer's recommendations and I ask council to do so. Thank you.
Okay, seconder, wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. To me, this is a matter of ethics and corporate social responsibility. I'd like to know why a company who states it wants to be part of our community should follow this particular pathway and go through going up, nullifying the input of council when it could have worked with us collaboratively for a better outcome. So I support this in that regard and in that community.
Is there a speaker against the substantive? Councillor Bone.
I'll speak against the motion. And if people recall back at the last council meeting at Austria when it came before council, I said that this is purely a planning matter that we had to vote on back then. And I said back then that if we voted it down, people shouldn't go away with a warm trust because a higher authority would make a ruling and they'd be in favour. And I'm saying the same thing here today.
Even if it's voted down today, it most certainly will get voted down today. Don't go away feeling all warm and fuzzy, because we'll go to JDAP next week and the chances are it will get passed. And I say that because I'm a member of the JDAP panel that will consider it next week, and I've sat on these a number of times. And when I've read this report 3 times in the last few days, and I honestly can't see a reason why JDAP will knock it back. And I'd like to touch on a few of the things. The reason these things go to JDAP now is because over the years, not just our council, a number of councils have made rulings based on emotion and not on fact or not on planning grounds. So more and more these decisions are getting taken away from council because we get it wrong so often. As recent as last week, an extraction licence went to JDAP for bidding up, where the council had moved to refuse it, and JDAP overruled it and approved it last week. These things happen. These things are happening more and more. In saying that, going through a number of the issues there, and it was stated, it's been put before council, that there's 90 objectives. So I guess as JDAP will look at, there's what, 1,800 people who are bidding up roughly, probably 1,000 voters. 90 have voted against it. Of that 90, some don't even live in bidding up from the objectives that I've seen. So that says to me, out of only 90 people who are bidding up, there's another 900 either don't care or in support of it, or are quite happy for it to go ahead. I mean, where's the rest of the bidding up community? All right, there was 200 vote marched on the weekend or whatever, so I'm told. I'm banned from Facebook, so I don't see the pictures. But there's only 90 objections that come in that I can see. So it tells me the majority of the towns in support of it. If I go through the issues, and priority agricultural lands come up, not even 6 months ago, this council voted against Patani's clearing trees, tulips, because they're protected on priority agricultural land. Now, this property is surrounded by tulip trees. Are we now going to support clearing tulip trees for priority agricultural land? I don't think so. We're not even allowed to approve it in the first place. Now, Mr. Hall already touched on whether it could be considered as a residential premises, and it's been ruled yes, it can be. So that's dead and gone. In precedent, there's been combination camps built on rural land all over Australia. The Worsley camps built on rural land. So I can't see that being an issue. As far as the sewage goes, deep sewage, this is not up to council to decide what happens or what happens. So it doesn't happen. This is the responsibility of DWA, and DWA, the state government department, will say what you can and can't do. They'll say that conditions will be put in place at the DAP meeting next week to say what can and can't do or what conditions will have to be met. As far as the effects on bidding up and antisocial behaviour and the increase in crime, we don't know that. There's been no social impact study done, and even if there was one done, how can they categorically say what's going to happen or what's not going to happen? I don't see how a social impact statement will make any difference to the decision-making process. Traffic impacts on bidding up, I hear this all, with everything that comes to council, there's going to be an increase in traffic on bidding up a road. I say to people more and more, you're living in a metropolitan area. Anyone who thinks you're going to live in a sleepy coastal town in the southwest of Western Australia for much longer, you're not. I remember 2 sleepy coastal towns when I was a kid, Mandurah and Muscat, and look at them now. Look at Australia back in sort of the late 1980s. There was only 400 people in Australia. Look at the place now. So, to say it's going to say a small sleepy town, it's not going. So I'm sorry, we're living more and more in a metropolitan area. Place of landscape value, we improve things all the time. It's going to be surrounded in trees. I don't see that being an issue either. I think I've touched on most of the things that will come up. Wastewater will be dealt by DWA. So all I can say is it'll go to DAP next week. In the end, it's not a council decision. In fact, myself and the President represent the Shire of the Council. We're outnumbered by other members. So all I'm going to say, wait and see.
Any other speaker for the motion? Any Any other speaker against? Councillor Campbell, right of reply.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Councillor Cavoni, on a rundown on how JDAP will work and giving us insight into how you think that what the outcome will be. But I think, councillors, that we should be seen to be in a position to be supporting the Being Up community in this situation. I am not against Albemarle. I just strongly believe that it's in the wrong site, and I wish that we could turn the clock back and come up with an alternate site in a residential area where they can utilise local businesses and shire facilities. So I ask councillors to support the officer's recommendation in this case, and then the councillors that go to JDAP will certainly be aware of what councillors' position is when it comes to that time. Thank you.
Okay, I'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried. 11-1. Okay, before I go to item 9, can I just thank everyone who turned out tonight and the conduct of the meeting for the deputations. Thank you very much. And I'd also just like to acknowledge that the Albemarle have come here tonight, so thank you for coming along and listening to the community. Am I getting... No, we didn't, did we? Thanks. Thanks. Lucky we've got good staff, isn't it? Up the recommendation 2 of 2. Okay. I'm not thirsty. Okay. Officer recommendation 2 of 2. We have a mover, councillors. Councillor Beach. Seconder. Councillor Campbell. Councillor Beach, you wish to speak? You've been quiet on that side of the table. Okay, thank you. Is there likely to be a speaker against? Any discussion at all, councillors? Okay, I'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried. 12-0. Okay, you'll never see another meeting like it conducted in a different way. But yeah, once again to the community, thank you very much for coming out tonight. Safe travels home. So without any further ado, I'll declare the meeting closed at 5:57 and thank you.